Welcome once again, ladies and D-Gents, to another fun-filled episode of the Distinguished D-Gents podcast. This is your one and many homes of degenerate gambling. I am one half of the Distinguished D-Gents. My name is Steve Big Bucks Abeyta. Not joining me this week is my co-host, my partner in gambling and bets, a.k.a. Jason Money Mansmann. He is unfortunately taking a timeout for this episode due to some personal affairs that he is attending to. He will be back for the Week 14 handicap episode, so make sure you guys tune in and check us out there. We'll give out all the remaining Week 14 picks, but I'll end the episode on my own, and we will give out our Green Bay versus Detroit picks as well. If you want to see Mansmann's pick, he'll probably put out a YouTube short, but if not, check out his post on x.com/dgentspodcast, where he'll give that out. Friday, we'll update you with the D-Gent Caser bet numbers to see where we're at on that. And moving on, for those of you who do end up watching this, I am repping the old school Colorado Rockies, the old Rockies, not the bum bullshit baseball team that unfortunately is plaguing our city, even though I'm from Maryland. Great day to be a Denver sports fan. Broncos win Monday Night Football. The Nuggets beat the Warriors once again during the NBA in-season tournament. And the Avalanche of all the fucking teams down 4-0 to the Buffalo Sabres. And I was watching that game, and I turned it off. I was so pissed off. Comes back and wins 5-4. So what a day, what a week for Colorado fans like myself. Mansmann, I know, is a happy camper as well. His Buffalo Bills came in strong on Sunday Night Football. I'll get into that. Overall, betting week, the betting trends for me personally, very, very interesting. Had a great holiday start. Me and Mansmann swept the Thanksgiving Black Friday schedule. We went on into the 1 o'clock slate where I only got 2 games wrong. One of them was sort of a fluky type of situation that I'll talk about. The 4 o'clock slate, unfortunately, is where the books got me this week. In a spot where I normally do well, I tend to go above 500. I got murked in all the 4 o'clock games on all of my picks. Just nothing seemed to want to go my way. Prime time, really bad play there. And then the Broncos come in clutch as my best bet. Not sure where to start. I don't know if I want to go in reverse order like we did last time or if I want to do the 1 o'clock slate. I think I'm just going to go. Let's get the 1 o'clock games first going, and then I'll make my way into the end where I can give you my thoughts and comments on my Denver Broncos and that Monday Night Football performance. But we kind of have to get the bad out of the way first. So we're only going to go over the Sunday games. We went over the Thanksgiving slate on our picks episode for Week 13. So if you want to go back and see what we thought on those, go back and watch that episode. But starting it off, it was the LA Chargers scoring 17 in Atlanta up against Kirko Thuggins, who only put up a whopping 13 on the board for them. So Chargers win, Chargers cover. The under hits in that one at, I want to say it was under 41.5. This was a weird type of game because I think that a lot of the sharps who were on the side of Atlanta were correct about the spot for the Chargers in that they probably weren't going to come out a little flat. They were going to come out and not be as productive on offense that we were used to seeing, that Atlanta's defense would probably have more of a thing to say. God, was this a disastrous performance from Kirko Cousins. 4 interceptions for Kirk in that game. And, yeah, credit to Harbaugh where you got to give credit. Basically outcoached Raheem Morris in this game. Herbert, very underwhelming performance, only had 147 passing yards. Really didn't do a lot. On the ground, surprisingly, Gus Edwards was the leading rusher. He only had 32 yards Ladd McConkey, breakout game, 9 catches, 117 yards. Yeah, I mean, just looking at the team sides, it really just kind of came down to the fact that despite the fact that the Falcons doubled the yards, couldn't get the points on the board, and they honestly just had so many turnovers that it kind of cost them the game. That's going to be kind of a running theme here, in my opinion. Like, there are some games where I think just turnovers, missed points, flags just cost teams games. This was one. I think if Kirk just finds the end zone once, clearly with this 17-13 score, I think the Falcons find a way to win this. And we're talking about, well, the Chargers are on, are they going to start trending towards auto fade, or we don't know. And, it was funny because like third quarter, it was a really close game. We're looking at a 17-10, 17-13 with Younghoe Koo. And just, I mean, once again, the Falcons just find another way just to have an upsetting loss. I'm trying to see if Younghoe Koo, I thought he had missed a field goal. Yeah, he did. He missed one. So, I mean, that's another one where, like, maybe the Falcons get the cover here if they just make that 3. A lot of the kickers this year have just had the yips, and Younghoe Koo was one of them. So, I think that's a kicker we're going to be looking at in free agency next week or next year. But not much else really to take away from that game. Next up on our list was the Indianapolis Colts. Oh, God, 25. New England Patriots, 24. This was a heartbreaker. This was one of the games where if you bet the dog to cover, you were looking very, very nice. But if you had them on the money line, especially in a round robin or in a parlay like I did, your heart was racing towards the end. And unfortunately, one of the times Shane Steichen has balls, makes the call to go for 2. It goes his way. And honestly, when you're a 6-7 team, I think Shane made the right call. You go for 2 every time because now you have to fight for 500 and you're fighting for a wild card spot. You're in the hunt. You're number 8 right now, I think, if you're the Indianapolis Colts. Tough, heartbreaking loss for New England. I think this was a game, just having kept an eye on it, the Colts just felt like they did enough to stay in tandem with this Patriots team. And finally, it just seemed like in the fourth quarter when Antonio Gibson broke off that run and then they got the 2-point conversion, I was thinking maybe this would be the Patriots' break because Anthony Richardson wasn't looking too hot. He only went 12 for 24. Had 2 picks, and only 109 yards up in the air. Seemed like every deep ball he was throwing was just not going his way whatsoever. Couldn't move the ball really until what felt like late in the game. Looked a lot like they were playing for the 3. And honestly, kind of like I said, just one of those things where they did just enough to win. They made the gutsy call at the end of the 4th to go for the win. It went their way, and I can't be mad. It's just heartbreaking, and especially if you're a Patriots fan moving forward. But, yeah, again, not much else to say. The overhit in that one, in case anyone was interested in that game total. Next up, the Houston Texans, 23. Jacksonville Jaguars, 20. This was one I think you just have to – I kind of went against – my normal line of thinking, which is, if CJ Stroud's a pick'em or if he's a dog, you bet on him. But I just think at this point, if the Texans are a favorite with CJ Stroud and this Houston Texans team right now, you just got to consider fading them. I mean, there was just no excuse. They were up 6-0 at the time when Trevor Lawrence went out. If not, it was like 6-3, but I'm pretty sure it was 6-0 going into in the second quarter. Trevor Lawrence goes out. You have many opportunities to run the score up, and just seemed like a spot where, oh my God, here comes Mac Jones again. Well, here comes Mac Jones sucks train. Well, I'm getting the Texans -7.5. Let me just hit this one more time. I've already betted at 3.5. But why not? Let's see if the live bet goes. Let's throw another unit. And all of a sudden, Mac Jones just becomes the second savior of God himself and, goes 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just a shame once again they couldn't get the job done. They couldn't get the win for Trevor coming off of that really blatant and disgusting hit from Azeez Al-Shaair. And I think a lot of sports media has already gone into that hit. They've already had a lot of comments going around. I know Azeez Al-Shaair made a comment already and apologizing to Trevor. Has a history of dirty hits. He has a chokehold on Tom Brady in one instance. He's got other questionable hits from when he was in the San Francisco 49ers. He reminds me a lot like of Kareem Jackson type, unfortunately, where like he might be a really, really good player, but he's just a little too dirty for the game. And this is like one of those instances where now he's suspended 3 games. You just lost one of your starting linebackers because he has no self-control and because he's, I don't want to say selfish, but quarterback takes a late slide, better than to go head to head. And it did not look like an instance of him even trying to stop himself one fucking bit. That's really my issue with the whole hit. I think, late slide, if he hits him and he just smacks his head back awkwardly, yeah, the O-line scraps and fights. I don't know if it's suspension worry. But the fact that Shaair just did not even seem to try to stop himself, the fact that this clown then literally gets in a brawl, which happens, but we could forgive it. But then the clown, on his way to ejection, starts flipping off fans, starts cussing at people. He's fighting the staff before trying to stay in the like. I don't know what the fuck kind of show he was trying to put on, but like the guy, like everybody called for a suspension. I'm glad he got it. Probably should have been suspended longer, but now Trevor Lawrence out for the year. He's on the IR. I don't know if it's necessarily due to the concussion. Maybe it's a combination of that and the shoulder injury he sustained earlier in the year. But yeah, prayers for Trevor Lawrence. Not how you want to see a guy go out, especially on injury. But like I said, in terms of the game, just another piss poor, depressing, underwhelming performance from this Houston Texans squad. Although, I mean, you look at the stats, Mixon got 100 yards and a tutty. Stroud threw a tutty to Dalton Schultz. That was cool. It just felt like a game they should have rolled this Jaguars team. And, they were up 23-6 in the fourth, so it looked like it was going that way. And just all of a sudden, Mac Jones just started coming back, and I was like wondering, with 3 minutes to go, I'm like, are they going to get this stop? Are they really going to fucking drive and win this outright? And I knew once Brian Thomas got the touchdown, I was like, this cover's not happening. Like, there's just no way. And that was one of those fourth quarter witching hours where Mac Jones just reappeared from death, and your cover got killed. That's the sad news on that. On top of the Trevor Lawrence instance, but moving on to with the remaining 1 o'clock slate from Week 13, it's the not Pittsburgh Steelers. That's not next on the list. It's the Seattle Seahawks who went to the New York Jets. This was a back and forth game on the spread where half of the week the Jets were favorite, the other half of the week the fucking Seahawks were favored. So when we handicapped this, we had the Seahawks as a -1.5 point favorite. They do win. They do cover 26-21. Wow. I'm not even a Jets fan, but for people who do watch the show or listen in, we are both fans of a Jets super fan show called Let's Talk Jets Radio. That was one of the more entertaining episodes I think I've ever listened to for one of their live streams. Just got again, another game. I just felt like I picked the Seahawks. The Sharps were on the Seahawks. I wasn't sure why. I really wanted to take the Jets. I thought they were going to get a bounce back spot. I didn't think the Seahawks were any good. And I don't think the Seahawks are any good, to be honest with you. I really don't think they're that good. This Jets offense really is like dreadful. I mean, outside of that first quarter where, Aaron Rodgers threw it to Devontae and Isaiah Davis, I mean, their offense was literally non-fucking existent. And, with that said, I'm not sure what else to say that hasn't already been said about the New York Jets. And the Seahawks, again, like, it just did not really feel like a great performance from Geno Smith and the offense either. I mean, he threw for 206 yards on a tutty. No real rushing game in that one on either side, in my opinion. But really, like, this was a turnover on top of turnover type of game. You had a biggie boy 92-yard return for a touchdown that ended up having a blocked extra kick. And then after that, it was just 2 field goals where the Jets were still somehow fucking winning this game just from special teams, and you just weren't sure, like, what the fuck was going to happen. Like, what sort of Jets magic were they going to pull this time? And no, sure enough, they gave it away late and then pretty much proceeded to die. Much like to the Jets season in general, I think at this point, you lay down and die if you're anyone on the Jets. I think this is the point where we're now in the month of December. So if you remember the flow chart, it used to be that, like, the Jets would kind of have a rough opening. October would roll around. They'd be really good, but Zach Wilson would be the reason. Then they would start to lose in November, and then come around Thanksgiving, media bullshit would come out or something would happen, but they would still be losing, but they'd get one win, usually to the Texans. You start thinking about rebounds because they have some other questionable opponents, and then just come December, it all starts tanking and going downhill. I think from now until the rest of the year, the Jets are just back on auto fade. I don't think the Jets are bettable. I don't think they're worth any fucking futures props or nothing, if there's even any out there. They're talking about Aaron Rodgers being cut from the Jets at the end of the year. They're talking about benching him, sort of like what they did with Russell Wilson. I don't know why. I will say a funny stat, the numbers with Robert Saleh in as head coach with their defensive variance and with this new guy in, like, the bottom line is Robert Saleh was not the fucking problem. The Jets, I think, are like 31st in points allowed to opponents. They're 32nd in, like, DVOA. Yeah, Jets are just unbettable from here on out, and I just would not waste any more money on them. All right, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, arguably one of the top 3 Week 13 games of the week. Pittsburgh covers. They win as a home dog. 44-38 was the final, and I apologize, I said home dog. They were actually a divisional road dog. They were 2.5-point road underdogs. Yeah, Joe Burrow, 300-yard passing game once again. 3-touchdown game once again. Russell Wilson, though, big breakout game. Could redefine his career, honestly, his time in Pittsburgh. But, I mean, to get very much a back-and-forth type of game, I did not expect it to be as high scoring as this. The total was really high. But, but I think this is like a Bengals MO type game where one of two things happens with this Bengals team. It's either you really do have to go in there and outperform them. You have to outduel them, outduel Joe Burrow, sort of like what Lamar Jackson and the Ravens did for 2 weeks. And then, I think there's a couple other opponents the Bengals played where they had to have a similar type of match where, Joe Burrow's going to throw his 300 yards and his 3 touchdowns, but it's like, can your offense step up and do the same, if not more? And the answer is, if you can, because this Bengals defense is dreadful and they're not going to stop a fucking nosebleed with, a stack of fucking paper towels. I don't know what the fuck else to make of this Bengals team. I think they're another team you just start kind of auto-fading. They're 4-8. They're all but out of the playoff contention at this point in the year. I have no... Like, again, just another unfortunate game where I think, like, if you were a Bengals backer or a Bengals fan and you were looking for something to hang your head high on, you were looking for hope. This was the kind of game I think you just needed to win. And the fact that you just didn't, and you let Russell Wilson go yard on you. Like, I don't even care. Like, it's literally so bad that Monday Night Football, the Manning brothers get a break. They had the fucking Simpsons coming in to take over to do their fucking gimmicky AI sort of recreation of this game, because that's just how bad it's going to be. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel bad for Joe. I mean, he might get the passing yards title. There's that. And just, I guess a personal comment on Russ. I had somebody ask me offline. I had somebody ask, like, does it piss you off as a Broncos fan that, like, Russ is balling and shining out in Pittsburgh and, like, he couldn't do shit in Denver? Like, and now you paid him $38 million to leave. It's like, I mean, no. Because that was a upper level decision. That wasn't really Russ's decision to leave. But does it piss me off he couldn't perform? I mean, look at what he fucking walked into. It was Nathaniel fucking Hackett, one of the worst fucking head coach decisions of all time. And that was so bad that when they did correct course and bring in Sean Payton, they didn't bring in a guy and probably consult Russell Wilson to see if they were going to get along or work out, or if Sean Payton was going to bring in a scheme and a coaching squad that Russ could work well in. They kind of just brought Sean Payton in and said, well, you're the future. Here's Russ, make it work. And Sean kind of came back and said, well, if this doesn't work, you're going to have to stick with me. And that's kind of just what happened. I will say, for Sean Payton's credit, I do think he smells himself a little bit as a head coach. I think he thinks he's better than what he really is. I think he got Bo Nix right, and because of that, he looks really fucking smart and he looks really good. Objectively, like, a guy like Bo Nix does a lot better in a Sean Payton system than a Russell Wilson would. But I think at the end of the day, you look at Payton versus Mike Tomlin. Well, Mike Tomlin is a way better head coach anyways. And I just think that if Russell Wilson was going to have a career resurgence, it was going to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was just a matter of, I think in that case, it was like, well, is Arthur Smith as the OC, is he going to work with Russ, or is Russ going to have to try to adapt and it's going to just crash and burn again? That was a lot of questions in the offseason, but no, I'm not upset by any means that he has success. I think makes it more interesting to bet on down the line. Because we do know a little bit about him, we kind of know what the weaknesses we have moving forward. All right, next game on our list, it is the Tennessee Titans. The mollywhopping, the murder, the massacre in Washington, D.C. against the Commies, a.k.a. the football team, a.k.a. Commanders, Redskins. Yeah, oh boy, if Mansmann was here, this is what we would probably have to call a cine on this bet. I liked Washington to win. I didn't like them to cover. I thought this would be a lot more competitive. It was my over of the week. Washington damn near had that on their own. Washington scored 42, Titans 19. Washington almost got the cover, like I said, on their own. The number was set at 44.5, so they were literally a field goal away. Weird thing, Will Levis didn't turn the ball over really once. Lot of fumbles, though, in this game, and that's really kind of what killed here. Like, 2 fumbles lost by the Tennessee Titans, 12 penalties for almost 100 yards. They got sacked, twice. It really just kind of came down to the efficiency. Jaden Daniels just made another argument for why he probably will win Rookie of the Year. 9 for 14 on third down compared to Will Levis, who went 5 for 12. Fourth down efficiency, Titans were 0 for 1. Only 50 plays on the field in that whole game. And really, this reminded me a lot of, the Ravens-Broncos game, where the Broncos came in and, they got the ball first, they looked good, and all of a sudden it was a tipped interception. Lamar had the ball within the 20, they score. they go and line up again, and the running back fumbles it, and they're within the 30. And then it just kept happening like that, and all of a sudden, you turn 1 second, and it's like, well, this should be close. And then it's the second quarter, and it's 28-0. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, yeah, this shit's dead. Nick Westbrook-Akine had him on fantasy. Great 2-touchdown performance from him, so I was happy about that. Yeah, and again, this was a game where, the Titans were down touchdowns, and then they responded with field goals, and they responded with turnovers. They responded with not converting. And this just, to me, like a loss like that, where I think Will Levis didn't completely fuck it up. Surprisingly, somehow he didn't fuck this up. I just think that the Titans coaching staff has a lot to answer for. They're going to have to make a lot of tough calls in the offseason. Will Levis may not be the future, but I don't know what the answer is if you're the Tennessee Titans organization. Just seems like you have a lot more questions than you have answers moving forward. But the Commanders, they're back in 8-5. They're back in the playoff race. We're into week 4. We're going into week 14. There's only 4 weeks left. Not the stretch you want to have a losing stretch. Have a losing stretch if you are the Philadelphia Eagles here. I could see a lot of crazy things happening this week coming up on week 14. All right, that was the last 1 o'clock game. Oh, no, we have one more 1 o'clock. It was the Arizona Cardinals going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, another one where I don't know what happened. I picked the Vikings to cover. It was looking okay until it wasn't. But the Vikings do come away with the win. Last 2-minute drill, they got the touchdown to Aaron Jones to win the game 23-22. Not much really to take away from this game. Again, one of those games where like Sam Darnold doesn't fuck it up, but you felt like they should have done more. Meanwhile, I think, again, really another game of field goals. We didn't see a first fucking touchdown in this game until the third quarter from Marvin Harrison Jr. Put the Cardinals up 19-6, and then really it was just kind of a real back and forth, ugly field goal game here. But Minnesota 10-2, that was a must win. I think if you're the Vikings, that was a must win. If you want a chance to win the NFC North, I think moving forward, every game is a must-win because if Detroit has 2 tough games moving on. They got Green Bay this coming week, tomorrow and Thursday night. Week after, they have the Buffalo Bills. Their schedule's not easy. I think the Vikings have a real chance to come and surprise a lot of people. Cardinals, again, kind of a tough loss. That was a must-win. They couldn't get away with it. They're 6-6 on the season. With only 5 weeks left, I think they might be going on the bye. I don't think they're going on the bye. I think they already had it, but not sure what to make of this fucking Cardinals offense with their performance. Again, like these two, like I don't know. Like I just think that these are not on paper, but maybe in real life with Sam Darnold and Kyler Murray, they're like just as equally skilled, and the offenses were just as dreadful in this performance. Like there really was no difference. It was just 2 different divisions. I don't really have much else on this one. But unfortunately, I'm about to go over where things go bad and I got murked. Tampa Bay, Carolina, 26-23 in overtime. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to say this other than like, how was I so wrong about Bryce Young last year and this year when I flipped my opinion and was like, yeah, he sucks. He's no good. They need to move on from him. The Panthers now have 4 straight covers, all as underdogs. They had 2 back-to-back overtime games where it wasn't overtime games, but 3 straight games, and within 3, 2 out of those 3 ended in overtime. Yeah, the Panthers are competitive again. I guess that's really what it comes down to. Bryce Young, almost 300 passing yards and a touchdown. No turnovers, though. And again, a team like the Bucs, like they're going to get their 26. They're maybe up to their 30. Carolina just hung in tough with them, in my opinion. It was very much a game where you were kind of wondering the whole time, like if you were like me, you're wondering, like, are the Bucs really going to lose to the Panthers here? And it just kept going back and forth, back and forth. 30 seconds, Adam Thielen gets a touchdown. You give Baker 30 seconds, he drives, and they kick the field goal to tie it. And, yeah, I think it just – I'm not really – I know the Panthers, I think, had their chance to win the game. They didn't pull it off. Chuba Hubbard, I think he had the losing fumble. Heartbreaking loss, but I think that's a loss where you still come away with a motivational win if that still exists at this point in the season. Because you have lost 2 back-to-back heartbreaking types of games against 2 really tough teams, especially one as a divisional opponent. But don't look now. Tampa Bay, they are on pace to take over the division for the NFC South. Atlanta, especially with the way they looked against the Chargers, they did not look good at all whatsoever. They may be a team you may want to consider fading. The Bucs, I think next week they have an interesting matchup. I want to say they go up at home against the Raiders. Meanwhile, the Falcons are on the road going to Minnesota. That could be a loss. So I think that those are 2 games you really want to keep your eye on if you're following the NFC South. Carolina, they are catching 12.5 against the Eagles. I think that makes a very interesting betting decision. I haven't picked a side on that one yet. I'm leaning towards taking the Panthers with the 12.5, especially with the Eagles coming off the win against the Ravens, which is what I'm about to get into next. Eagles 20-4, Ravens 19. The only thing I have to talk about in this game, there's a serious conversation the Ravens have to have with Justin Tucker. Don't know why, don't know what it is. That man could not kick a field goal, cannot kick an extra point. This time, it 100% cost them a win. 7 points left off the board for Baltimore. They don't cover, but they win this game. And I think if you're Justin Tucker, the money, the $12 million, I think they paid you to be the highest NFL paid kicker. Just ever since that moment with Kansas City at home, the man's never been the same. Don't know if he's hit the ceiling and now we're just watching the downfall. I don't know if it's just a case of the yips, but Baltimore has to have a serious conversation with their kicker. And they have to decide moving forward, especially coming around playoff contention. If they stick with Tucker and he keeps performing the way he just did against the Eagles, they may be a one-and-done team. And I think on the flip side, you look at the Eagles, I wouldn't be too impressed with them either with this win. The only thing I would say is that, Saquon Barkley, once again, the goal is you have to learn to stop him. But if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you're kind of saying, well, no one's figured it out yet, so we can just keep rolling with it. And I don't blame them one fucking bit. I think if you're the Eagles, you hand the ball to Saquon 25 times a game. You get him his touchdown. You get him his 100 yards. You open up the field, and you tell Jalen Hurts, "Hey, throw it when you're ready. Don't make the same mistakes that you used to make." And Eagles are playing real ugly ball. It's not pretty. It's very defensive minded, sort of like the Vic Fangio system that Denver used to run, and sort of what he's really known for. But at the same time, it's working, and long-term goals, defense wins championships. And I think this Eagles team is going to be very, very hard to beat. I don't see too many teams being able to stand up to them unless they find a way to stop Saquon Barkley. And that's really my two takeaways from each team. I think the Ravens are now at the point they got to have serious conversations about these types of losses. What feels like to me, I think it's another like one possession loss, another game where field goals and extra points being missed just cost them. It could cost them a home field advantage, could cost them a wild card if it comes down to it. That's a major concern. All right. LA Rams 21, Saints 14. This was an interesting one for me because on one hand, I'm not upset about picking the Saints. I don't think it was a tough pill to swallow necessarily. I had the Saints in a teaser bet, teased it up to 8.5 at a plus 160. So that cashed. So I did win money on the Saints. So maybe that's why. But on the other hand, this was very much like a stereotypical Derek Carr game. That's really what I think it comes down to. Like, this was a game where like the Saints were up early, and like what I did keep tabs on, like what I remember was, first quarter Saints were up 3-0. They're driving the ball. I see Kamara one in the end zone. I'm like, wow, it's 10-0 already. Wow, well, this was the right side. Well, I flipped it back and it was 6-0 going into the half, and I'm like, well, what the fuck happened? Why is this 6? And then I go back and it turns out, they called a flag and it went to 3rd and 22. And Derek Carr doesn't get it done. So we're going 6-0, and all of a sudden Kyron Williams here, he comes at 7-6. The tail really comes in the fourth quarter where Matt Stafford finally woke up and remembered how to utilize his receivers. Big play to Demarcus Robinson, and then he threw it to him once again with the touchdown. Derek Carr had a big throw early just in response to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They tied it up, and then it looked like it was going to be back and forth. And, yeah, like literally you watch the last 7 minutes, you're like, well, here comes Derek Carr in response, and they kill clock. They move the ball. They get the third down conversions. Derek Carr's getting completions, but not a lot of yards. But they're moving. And then it comes down to like a crucial fourth down play in the red zone. They get a strip sack fumble. Saints recover, but they tackle him. It's 1 minute to go. That's game. Typical Derek Carr performance, 24 for 37, 184 and a tutty. I think if you're the Saints and you have to go get a new head coach, I would honestly say too, like, Derek Carr obviously is not the answer, but I think this game just unfortunately solidified that as his career. Like, I don't see Derek Carr after this season being a starter on any franchise. He's moving on to the Andy Dalton phase of his career, where I think he's just going to be a career backup, looking over the rookies. But yeah, this was a game, I think that the way the Rams played, it was very easily winnable. You were doing great with handing it to Kamara on the ground, and you get the completions. You just didn't get enough. You don't get the yards. You don't get the third down conversions until late in the game, until it's really almost damn near too late. And then just to end the game on that fashion, I mean, you have 5 for 15 on third downs, and Derek Carr, supposedly the veteran starter. If that's your best quarterback as the Saints, you have to you may have to just consider moving on, eating some shit years, and just try to reinvent the team, because you're going nowhere fast if you're the Saints. And in a division too that's really bad. But now you're seeing the Carolina Panthers. They're starting to get it together. Bryce Young is starting to really get into his groove. He is starting to look great. The Bucs and the Falcons are the top 2 contenders right now, and the Bucs are looking like they're taking over. Yeah, if you're the Saints, I say you do what you can with Derek Carr, but afterwards you have to move on, because you're not going to be any more competitive. You can't win games with Derek Carr. That's just the sad truth. Matt Stafford and Sean McVay, they can win together. They find ways to do it all the time. This was another way, another instance where those two just found a way to win. They got the job done. All right, Sunday Night Football. Money Mansmann, unfortunately, is not here to give me crow. This is where I probably would do Cinerator number 2, but it is the San Francisco 49ers giving me a massive 10 points on the board. They lost Christian McCaffrey. They lost their backup. I don't even care for his name, but I'll look that up in a minute. I just am so ashamed. 10-35, the Bills, big Sunday Night Football snow game win for the Bills. Josh Allen solidified his MVP. I should have bet it earlier when it was plus money. Didn't do it. I have never seen a guy get a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown in the same play until Josh Allen threw the ball and then runs up in the middle of a snowstorm, calls for the ball, and beats 3 different San Francisco 49ers defenders. All I can say, like, I don't even need to look at the stats. I don't need to do any of that. That was a statement win for the Bills. That was nail in the coffin for the 49ers. I think their playoffs hopes are done. I think all my futures tickets are burned with them. Christian McCaffrey's out on the IR for the year. Isaiah Guerrero is going to be the starting running back moving forward. Yeah, Niners call it a wash. Get through the rest of the season. Look at your next potential window for the next foreseeable future. My only concern is with this PCL injury to Christian McCaffrey. You have to wonder if their Super Bowl window is officially gone. I don't know if he comes back this is his 3rd serious injury he's had. I don't know how he comes back from this. But the Bills, they have a very interesting matchup week 14. They are they on the – oh, no, they're in the bye. I keep forgetting. I think – no. They play the Rams. I don't know why I don't know what's going on. No, they're going back on the road, but they're playing the LA Rams this week. So they have a back-to-back NFC West matchup. That should be intriguing to look into, but they're only laying 4.5 compared to the 6.5 they were at home, especially when Brock Purdy was starting. So interesting situation we got going on there. Monday Night Football. This was arguably, without a doubt, game of the fucking this is in contention for game of the year. In my opinion, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what other really good games we've had this year. There was a couple of good Thursday Night Football bangers as well. 32-41 was the final. Jameis Winston just basically found where PS2 was and threw the opposite direction to Jerry Jeudy. Both those two individuals massacred this Broncos defense. Jameis had 497 yards and 4 touchdowns, one of which to Jeudy, 2 to David Njoku, 1 to Nick Chubb, and Jeudy had 9 catches for 235 yards. And there's the Star Wars meme with Padme and Anakin. It's like, wow, that's great. So how much did they beat the Broncos by? How much did they beat the Broncos by? And they didn't. And the Broncos just 2 pick sixes later somehow found a way to win this game against this Browns team. I don't know if anybody had this game going that way. I sure shit didn't. Great. I mean, look, good win by the Broncos. I'm happy the Broncos won. My serious complaint, I think you really make the case that if it was any other quarterback other than Jameis, look, everyone's saying he's the most exciting quarterback we've ever seen. I don't know if I would call him the most exciting quarterback I've ever seen. He's the most unpredictable quarterback we've ever seen because you don't know what he's going to do the next drive. You don't know if he's going to air it out to Jerry Jeudy. In response to Bo Nix throwing a 93-yarder to fucking Marvin Mims, here he comes. Well, I'm just going to air it to Jeudy, and it works. But then, comes to the fourth quarter. God, where's the overview? There we go. Fourth quarter, it's 32-34. You're only down by 3. And you throw a pick to Jaquan McMillan, takes it back 44 yards. And you're like, damn, well, that's game and set under 2 minutes. And then he just drives the ball again in a meaningless drive. And then finds a way to throw another interception to the fucking Broncos to ice the game. Almost had it ran back for a third pick six. Thank God for Jameis Winston is all I can say, because he got me the cover. It was my best bet of the week, and it was really a suck out. That's really all I can say. It was a suck out of the -5.5 cover. The Broncos really felt like it was a suck out for a win. Felt like it was the wrong team, in my opinion. Like, this was a game where I think if it was the Ravens, the Eagles, really a team that normally doesn't turn the ball over as much. I feel like Denver gets massacred. We're having a whole different conversation. My other complaint, Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator, his play calling is really, really becoming more and more questionable each week. I get he wants to run the ball first, but he switches off the running backs more than he switches out decks of cards in a shoe in Vegas. You never know who's going to get the start. You never know who he's really going to utilize. You never know what's going to work. It just seems like they're fucking throwing their hands up saying, fuck it, you, go out there. And then when it doesn't work, all right, sit on the bench. You, go out there. And, they're just they don't really sit and plan and figure it out. They're just throwing fucking running backs out left and right. And then all of a sudden it's third down. You're like, oh, shit, Bo. We're going to go empty slot shotgun. Fuck it, heave it. Seemed like every third down, Bo Nix was just throwing it 50-plus yards in a one-on-one matchup, just trying to get the big completion. And seemed like he abandoned the short pass. He abandoned the out routes. It seemed like he abandoned every other play going into that second half. And that's really what concerned me. It was just the play calling. Felt like it should have been sharper. It just wasn't. Or Bo Nix was feeling the pressure and making crazy throws, but really wasn't being, ostracized for it as a rookie. He kind of was it seemed like that was the call to make, but really didn't seem like the right calls. But again, they come away with the win. There's not much else I can really complain about. I just think moving forward, I have very serious concerns with the Broncos play calling. And, especially going on into next week when they have to, is it next week or they went into the bye? I'm pretty sure Denver's going into the bye. Much needed bye week 2. Yeah, they are. So, yeah, Denver's going into the bye. Cleveland, they have a matchup with Pittsburgh once again, where now they're catching 6.5. We'll see. We'll see. I have major concerns in that spot. But, yeah, that's it. That was all the Sunday games for Week 13. I'm going to quickly go into the Thursday Night Football handicap since Mansmann's not here. I'll throw you my final numbers, though. So, for the Week 13, I went 9-7 ATS, 13-3 on the money line, 10-6 over-unders. That puts me at 99, 92-4 ATS, 129.66 on the money line, 107.88 over-unders. Best bets, all 5 of them hit. Favorite of the week was the Broncos. Dog of the week was the Steelers. My fade of the week, I faded the Raiders, or I faded the Chiefs, picked the Raiders earlier in the week. That hit. Over-under picks. So I had under Chargers Atlanta game at under 47.5. And my over of the week was the Titans Commanders game. That hit. So we're going to hopefully bring that luck into this week. But as I said, I'm going to give you my Thursday Night Football prediction, and we're going to call it an early night. With that said, odds are going to come from FanDuel. Green Bay Packers, Thursday Night Football, catching 3.5 points as a road underdog, plus 142. Lions, home favorite, divisional home favorite, minus 3.5, minus 168 on the money line. The over-under is still set at 51.5. Money is coming in on Green Bay at 52%, but the bets are in Detroit's favor at 57%. Seems like a pros Joe's spot once again, where the public is on Detroit. The professional bettors seem like they're splitting with Green Bay. I have a bit of a clerical error, I have to admit. Messed up a couple of my numbers in terms of records that I gave out. So just as an update, divisional road underdogs this year have gone 17, 11, and 1 ATS. Only 9 and 20 straight up, though. If you take the NFC teams into the equation, it is 7 and 7 ATS and 5 and 9 straight up. I'm not 100% sure of what to make of those stats, other than like more often than not, it seems like they're not the right side to take, but ATS is a coin flip. Here's what I do know. Dan Campbell is 5 and 2 straight up against Green Bay as a head coach. He's covered 6 straight against them. The last time they played, which was in Green Bay, they were 2.5 point favorites. And they beat them 24-14, but that was a bit of a fraudulent final because it was really 24-6 up until around the last 5 minutes, where they gave up a late touchdown that, was honestly kind of meaningless. And now, weeks later, it's 3.5. And other than the injuries to the Lions defense, which I haven't even seen an updated list yet, but the Packers secondary is still just as banged up as the last time I handicapped this game. Both of their cornerbacks are either limited or out. Edgerrin Cooper, their linebacker, hasn't practiced, as far as I know. But either way, so even if you take all that out, the market is kind of telling me, wow, this is either saying that home field advantage is only worth 1 point here from the last time, and removing that in the first instance, the game was supposed to be a pick'em, or this market from Vegas was just being awfully set low, and this is an overreaction to Thanksgiving. Because I think you throw the last week out the window in terms of the spread. I know the Lions didn't cover. They damn near lost the game, but that to me is like just a spot play. Every year, that's just what happens with this Detroit team. For some reason, they come close in those games. They either lose outright or they don't cover. The Packers really look good against the Dolphins team, who, let's be honest, they went into 20-degree weather in Lambeau. It was a non-conference road spot. And the Dolphins they don't beat teams that have over a 500 record. And neither do the Packers, quite frankly. So this, to me, like I said, it's a bit of an overreaction. The Packers, I know they're 5-1 ATS as road underdogs in their last 6. Jordan Love is 3-0 straight up in ATS as a divisional road dog. Maybe I'm wrong in this spot, but I just don't like this version of the Packers where they just sort of beat up on the bad teams, play close against the mediocre ones, but the good teams, they just seem to like fumble. They seem to find ways to fuck it up. So I'm going with the public here, I guess, and it's the Detroit Lions minus 168. I'm taking the 3.5. However, I'd rather parlay the Lions with another favorite. I'm going to look into that and probably give that out on Friday. I'll probably give it out later on our Twitter page at x.com/DGensPodcast. But yeah, I not a big confidence play, but I just think if I have to pick a side, I'm going to take the divisional home favorite over everything else. So yeah, I'm going to take Detroit. I'm actually going to go with the under here at under 51.5. Wanted to say I had a reason for this stat too. So divisional road dogs, or actually no, it's the divisional games. They tend to be over games. So we're looking at a 34-25 record in divisional matchups. So they do tend to hit the over. NFC teams, especially, I think those tend to hit over, but I just think this 51.5 is a bit too high. I don't know, man. Both teams have injuries on the defense. I mentioned that too. But I guess I'm just going with the gut play here. I just don't think Green Bay's really going to be able to produce. I think last week was a massive overreaction. I think the Lions got, I mean, like they say, it was really close. Like the second half, they really couldn't stop Caleb. But in that first half, they just completely shut him down. And in the last game that we saw Jordan Love go up against the Lions at home, the Lions defense basically shut him down too. So I'm kind of anticipating that if the Lions are going to win and the Lions are going to cover, it's going to be a bit of a similar performance here. And I just think that this is going to be a tale of two halves. Maybe Lions first half is a play as well. Might throw that in as a bet for a unit. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Lions first half, I got under 51, and I'm going Detroit minus 3.5 is the pick just for the contest. But that's all I got. I have no other closing remarks. Make sure you guys tune in Friday. If you do catch our show, catch us Friday as we come in live. We're going to give out our remaining week 14 picks. Money Mansmann, my co-host, will be returning, hopefully from his affairs. I got nothing left. I'm Steve Big Bucks Beta. I'm signing off. Have a good night, D-Gents.